Want candy? Want candy now?
What is going on, everybody? This is Nazarachi coming back at you guys yet again for another episode of Relic Review. It has been a little bit because unfortunately the Final Fantasy XV didn't have an event or Relic banner update really. So we are, with big news here today, back again. Now, the main purpose of this episode, we're going to Relic review this Final Fantasy XI banner, and the event goes along with it, the Shadow Stirs. It's going to be mostly focused around Curilla, Affmal, and Zeid as the three characters on this Relic banner, with a Super Soul Break for Shantoto as well, if I'm not mistaken. In my opinion, I think the second banner is going to be better. Pursuing relics for Lion and Ayame is going to be kind of more favorable. Now, I have to be honest, I never played Final Fantasy XI, and I'm not a huge fan, and I don't really have an interest or investment in either one of these Relic banners. However, I would not fault you or any fans of the game for making pulls on these banners, and especially on Banner 2, like I had mentioned, for Lion and Ayame. With that being said, you do have a very powerful kind of white mage coming into the game with this Affmal character. She is a White Mage 5, Summoner 5, and Monk 3. So her ability pool is kind of interesting. It's going to be similar to Yuna. Right? So you won't have access to Wrath or any really good soul break generating mechanisms. So you're going to have to play around that, but her healing is pretty top notch and she does have some good effects. Curilla's USP is kind of useful, but we're going to jump in and check all that out here in 1 second. I am unfortunately making this review a little bit too close to when the banner released, so I do not have that data mined accurate information on what your expectations are for the relic drops, but we can safely assume the normal. For anyone that may be new here, about 0.5% to about 1.1% for 6-star relics, be it OSBs, USBs, anything like that. You have about a 0.7% to about 1.2 or 3% chance to see a BSB or an LMR drop, and then you're looking at about 1.5 to about 3 at the top end for Super Soul Breaks and Uniques to drop. However, we haven't really seen Uniques in a little bit except on those beginners banners. So with that being said, assume that for this as well here. Now, another huge update we do have as well is the Magicite dungeons have been released. This is going to be a very difficult new way to acquire a very powerful moveset for associated different Magicites. If we're going off Final Fantasy VI terms, it's kind of like Esper summons, which are different than actual regular summons. Not really, but they seem to have made a distinction in Final Fantasy Record Keeper for it. A lot of those dungeons are, like I said, very difficult. They are time-based. You're definitely going to want to read the dungeon tooltips to see the basic guidelines of what you're supposed to do and not supposed to do, and then kind of go from there, build the best themed team you can to take on the event in the shortest amount of time possible for the best rewards. I'm not really a huge authority on those dungeons yet, so I can't really speak on them, but I'm going to get into it. Maybe we'll do one, and I'll separate that for another episode or something like that. So do check those out. They are now available. You do have to have finished all of the Nightmare dungeons to have access to them, but I'm sure if you guys have kept up with the game updates and read some of that info, you'll really find a lot of it there that I'm just kind of repeating right now. So instead of wasting a whole bunch of time with that, we'll save Magicite for another time. For now, let's just jump into the Final Fantasy XI banner here. Check out this first relic is going to be a USB for Curilla. It is the Gluttony Sword, 174 attack, and unfortunately your synergy bonus for holy damage is only for Final Fantasy XI realm. That makes this a not really optimal holy sword when you compare it to some other ones that have the constantly active holy damage bonus, like Agrarius's OSB. Then this one kind of falls behind, but obviously you will want to use it to bolster your attack power in Final Fantasy XI. So the USB here, Holy Circle, temporarily raise the attack and magic of all allies a moderate amount, defense a small amount, and grant them a barrier that reflects attack damage back at the attacker. So I am concerned about that version of Radiant Shield. It seems to not work with magic. I haven't tried it, so I don't know for sure, but based off the wording here and based off the fact that Curilla is your typical knight type character, I would assume that it is only physical attacks coming from your opponent. So that does make this kind of a niche relic. You do have the tri-stat buff, so that is really good. Very much like Ramza's USB and a couple others, you'll see that they are very stackable. They mesh well with pretty much every buff in the game and just provide global benefits to the whole team. No matter if they are a DPS or magic DPS or support character, they benefit from these tri-buffs. So that is reasonably good. Overall, I don't think this USB really stacks up to a lot of other USBs in the game. If you've already got Curilla fairly well built, or you're attempting Final Fantasy XI Sid missions and just for synergy, it may help you out, but it's not really something that stands out and makes me want to draw on this banner. And like I had mentioned earlier, the Lion and Ayame banner coming up next is probably going to be more powerful than this one. It's just my opinion though. If you like Curilla, don't let me shit on your cereal. Next up, we have an Ultra Soul Break, the Jadagna, for the new character here. 77 attack, 130 magic, 170 mind, and unfortunately no bonus effects. You have the USB Overdrive. Instantly restore a large amount of HP to all allies, grant them haste, and remove the delay from their actions for 1 turn. We have seen that featured on Ramza's USB and even stuff like Noctis's Super Soul Break from the last banner. It is a really useful effect, and it's kind of cool now that more of them are rolling out into the game because you can start to double up on this effect, and that makes it quite fun. This will help get your slower roaming warrior casts out, like your Wall or even Orlando's OSB, for example. So very useful, can save your ass in a bind, and instant heals, always good. This is kind of, again, very good for Final Fantasy XI synergy, but we'll have a lot of characters that are better than Affmal for the purposes of having access to support or just other effects that make them better healers or summoners or just, I don't know, better characters in general. So again, she is great for Final Fantasy XI content, but I don't think she quite makes the cut for your A team. And for that reason, and the second banner as well, this doesn't really entice me to want to make a pull on this banner. Again, Final Fantasy XI is just not really something I'm super interested in. Personally, I would recommend that you guys save your Mithril or your resources for the Edge Rubicant Final Fantasy IV banner or the Bart's USB banner. I think it'll be much better spent in one of those two realms instead of on this one. But again, if you are a Final Fantasy XI fan, I'm not going to try and convince you any further to not make a pull here. Next up, we have a BSB for Affmal, the Aristocrat's Crown. 0 attack, 28 magic, 86 defense, 126 resistance, and 37 mind. No bonus effects. And the BSB Realignment. Restore a moderate amount of HP to all allies, temporarily raise their magic and mind a moderate amount, and grant burst mode and haste to the user. So that is very standard. It's a good entry effect for a healer. The moderate amount of HP is not going to be overpowered compared to the healing effect on her USB, but you do get the double buff that is going to benefit your magic DPS and your healers as well. So it is a very beneficial entry effect. And the burst commands here are going to very similarly mimic the summon strike mark that you get on stuff like Golbez's BSB, and it's just called activated for her now. So the burst abilities activate, restore a moderate amount of HP to one ally. If the user has burst mode, grant activated to the user. The user is already activated. Deal 4 white magic, lightning, and non-elemental attacks to one target. Restore a moderate amount of HP to one ally, and remove the activated mark from the user. God dang, that was a lot of reading. So you do have that comparable mechanic to the summon strike. Use the burst command 1 to lead in with that. It'll enhance both the first and second burst commands, and if you use the first burst command again, it'll consume it. Generally on BSBs like this, you get about 4 casts. That's for stuff like Tenets of the Faith, Yuna for example. You get about 4 casts off of it. So your strategy here would either be lead with burst command 1, and then spam burst command 2 twice, and then finish with burst command 1. Or if you really want the extra single target heal and DPS, you can just use the first burst command 4 times as an option as well. So it's interesting. Again, I don't really like hybrid damage and healing characters personally, other than Yuna, for example. And this character is kind of similar to Yuna in the way that she's structured. She's pretty good. Unfortunately, like I had mentioned earlier, you don't have access to Wrath or any way to generate Soul Break, so you're definitely going to want to play around that, just depending on what you have available to you with record materia or just whatever dungeon you might be in. Next up here, we have a new BSB for another new character, the Arondite Sword for Zeid. It is 140 attack, no other stats, and again, unfortunately, your small boost to dark damage is synergy dependent. So it's not going to be quite as helpful as something like Cypher's Glove, but you do have just an interesting new character here. I'm not familiar with this character at all from Final Fantasy XI. Your BSB here, which is kind of looking like a pentagram there. Abyssal Strike, 8 physical dark non-elemental attacks to one target, with a high chance to interrupt its pending actions. Haven't seen that mechanic in a while. Temporarily infuse the user with the power of dark and grant haste burst mode to the user. So it does have a reasonable amount of effects there on entry. 8 attacks. You got the interrupt, which is going to be selectively useful. I'm assuming it's going to be helpful in Final Fantasy XI because why else would they put it on here? But I guess we'll have to find that out as well. And I don't know, he's another physical dark user that you could potentially throw on a team with Dark Knight Cecil and Golbez and Garland, a couple other characters. So keep that in mind as well. If you're building a dark themed team, he would fit into it pretty nice. You have the burst abilities Nether Void, 4 physical dark non-elemental attacks to one target. Deals 5 attacks if the target has a slight weakness or is vulnerable to dark. We've seen this mechanic 100% before. It's nothing new here. And you do have a bargain on command 2, the Desperate Strike. 2 physical dark non-elemental attacks to all targets. Temporarily lower the user's defense for the attack moderate increase. So again, just another physical dark character. I'm not sure what all his stat pool is and what he has access to, but I don't know, he could fit in nicely to your Synergy Sid Mission team, or to, like I had mentioned earlier, your Physical Dark team. I would take it. Any BSB I'm not going to get upset about if I happen to pull one. You have a Burst Soul Break here as well for Curilla, the Temple Knight Army Sword. 131 attack, no bonus effects. Intervention, 6 physical holy non-elemental attacks to all targets. Temporarily raise the attack and defense of all allies a moderate amount, and grant haste and burst mode to the user. You have the burst abilities. I don't even know how to pronounce that. I'm pretty good about pronouncing words normally, but Requiescat. 4 physical holy non-elemental attacks to one target and grant major regen to the user. Not really useful there. Major regen actually can help out in poison or sap situations, but it's not really beneficial to the team because you can't cast it on anyone except for yourself. Blade of Uriel, 2 physical holy non-elemental attacks to all targets, raise the user's defense a very large amount, and temporarily redirect single target physical and black magic attacks to the user. Almost identical to Gladiulus's BSB here, and again, keep in mind you don't have a resistance buff naturally occurring on this, so you're going to want that Shelga or Wall or any other means of buffing your resistance if you're bringing this to a magic-themed dungeon. You'd probably just want to recast this because our USB, the Radiant Shield, is not going to help out in a magic-themed dungeon, but you know, you also have to juggle that tri-buff, so if you're shooting for Curilla relics, I do hope that you get them, but again, I can't stress enough that saving is probably the best option right now. We're to the legend materia, so we got for Curilla here the Royal Squire's Mufflers, 31 attack, 18 magic, 96 defense, 92 resistance, 18 mind. Leaning towards an attacking character, but can benefit anyone who happens to wear it for synergy. I don't even really feel like going over this Legend Materia relic right here. It's identical to Gladiulus's yet again, so not really useful, not high tier, but yeah, it literally is identical to Gladiulus's from the last banner, so I just covered that. Basically, every once in a while, she'll block a physical attack for another teammate. Overall, grand scheme of things, it's not super useful. It does look pretty cool, though, whenever it triggers. For the new character Affmal here, we do have the Alcyonius bracelet. Well, this game's got a lot of awkward pronunciation going on. Again, leaning for either a healer or an attacking character. You have just stats that kind of complement whoever's wearing it. Don't really feel like reading them, but right there they are for you on the screen. Just kind of benefits anyone. Your legend materia here. This one is kind of interesting. I'm not entirely sure if we've seen this effect before or not, but small chance to automatically damage stock a character up to 2k HP when healing with a single target white magic ability. So with that being small chance, it's not going to trigger enough to be really reliable, but every once in a while you'll get a bonus 2k damage stock. That is pretty useful. Unfortunately, it's not going to be quite as useful as something like Iris's Legend Materia Relic for double casting white magic. I just honestly think that the double casts are the best route and the best Legend Materia Relics in the game that I've seen so far. Feel free to dispute me if you feel otherwise, but this is useful. I would definitely appreciate this if I was using Affmal as a healer here. Next up, we are to the Super Soul Break. So unlike the singular Final Fantasy 15 banner, only 2 Legend Materia Relics on this banner, and expect 2 more on the next banner. So for Affmal here, the Earth Double, light armor, 17 magic, 116 defense resistance, 17 mind, and you do get minor earth resistance. This is the first always active bonus effect I think we've seen on this banner so far here. Super Soul Break, remove and resist. Temporarily grant all allies major regen and a barrier that enables them to avoid 1 debuff. Extremely niche Super Soul Break here, kind of like the Counterattack Relic that we saw a couple banners back. You're not going to be using this almost ever, except in a very specific situation where you're getting spammed with debuffs and maybe sap, so you need that major regen across the whole team. I would honestly want to avoid this relic like the plague here, so we'll just skip on to the next one and forget that that one even really exists there. You have the Scutum. It's a wall shield for Zeid here. 17 attack, 136 defense, and 90 resistance. I'm pretty happy with those stats, seeing that it's just a big giant shield. Bonus effects are non-existent, and you have the Super Soul Break Freeze Bite. 8 physical, dark, and ice attacks to 1 target, and heal the user for a moderate amount proportional to their max HP. Deals more damage as the user's HP drops. I'm going to go on a limb and say that this is another kind of garbage Super Soul Break. I really don't like the risk your HP for a little bit of payoff effects in this game. However, if you're bringing a last stand on the team, which there is none of provided on this particular banner, you will be able to play that a little bit more risky. So with that being said, I wouldn't really encourage you to use this Super Soul Break ever unless you really need a heal for just your user. So again, it's kind of greedy. This is kind of a bad Super Soul Break. Yeah, it's bad. It would combo nicely, I guess, with something like Idea, who's also dark and ice, but weird team build if you're doing a hybrid dark, physical, and magic. I don't know how I feel about that yet, because bringing all the required buffs is going to be tough to squeeze in. So, yeah, not a fan of that shield there. Super Soul Break for Curilla here. Ion Musketeers Curious, heavy armor, 17 attack, 136 defense, 93 resistance, no other stats, no bonus effects. And the Swift Blade, 6 physical holy non-elemental attacks to 1 target. Restore a moderate amount of HP to all allies, proportional to their max, and cast Asuna on them. This is by far the most useful Super Soul Break we've seen on the banner, and it's going to drastically overpower something like Zeid's Tower Shield, the last one we saw. Does 2 less attacks, and other than that, you get the HP to the whole team, and the Asuna, which, like I said, just way better Super Soul Break than any of the others so far. We do have the oddball relic of the bunch here, the Jupiter Staff. This is a staff for Shantoto. 55 attack, 123 magic, 61 mind, no bonus effects. And Vidofnir, 8 magic, non-elemental attacks to random targets, reduce the user's offensive magic casting time for 5 turns. If you're bringing Shantoto, that could potentially benefit her, especially if you have her Chain Soul Break and her BSB. you could reasonably use this to get 5 turns of delay reduction to help pump out some of her other DPS qualities, but you're just going to have to balance that soul break gauge, because using it for a super soul break into a chain soul break into one cast of her BSB may not be the most efficient usage of the gauge there. Again, that is kind of the oddball relic for this banner. And the last one, let's go ahead and make 100 gem draw here. Do my closing thoughts. Again, just briefly, I personally think the second banner, if you're going to spend Mithril on Final Fantasy XI and not save it for Final Fantasy IV or V, probably the second banner would be the way to go. We got pooped on here with a 4-star relic. This staff I've seen quite frequently, actually. So, again, just as we're on our way out here, I would say save it for Banner 2, save it for Final Fantasy IV or V, really would be the best option. If you're a fan of Final Fantasy XI, I guess there's no real problem in pulling for Synergy, but just remember that Final Fantasy XI events don't come around super often. I do hope that you guys enjoyed this episode of Relic Review. As always, if you're new to the channel, subscribe so I can see you around on future videos. Sorry it's been a little bit since my last upload, but there hasn't really been a whole lot of content, and I do know that I'm slacking on my streams. I kind of would like some better equipment, but again, I'm not going to get into all that. Do remember Magicite dungeons are available. Start trying to knock those out if you are able to. If you need help with stuff like that, feel free to join my Discord. The link is in the description. There's plenty of pro players in there and people who play every day and who are pretty much always on Discord off and on to be able to help anyone out who may need it. So if you guys want to communicate, I guess I'll see you there. Other than that, if you enjoy the episode, toss me a like and hit the bell for notifications if you haven't already. Both of those things really help me out on YouTube, help me grow so we can get these episodes out to more people, and expect some other games as well. It's just a multi-game channel here. What can I say? Hope you have a great day. This is Nazdarachi, and I will catch you next time. Peace out, you guys.